Hi everyone, and happy early Valentine's. In lieu of the holiday, I decided to do a video recommending sexy horror books. This video is going to involve a loose interpretation of this subgenre that I just kind of made up, and I hope that this will be a lot of fun. I just like making seasonal videos. Last year for Valentine's, I talked about dark erotic thrillers and sexy romance books, and the year before that, I talked about stalkers. So this year, I decided to focus specifically on horror. There's a few books in here that lean a little bit more towards urban fantasy, but we'll get into that in a moment. And again, this is just fun. I'm going to keep this pretty PG, so hopefully you don't have to click off even if you're a little bit more conservative. I just thought that this would be a fun video to put together, and hopefully you enjoyed it too. All that being said, let's get into the books. First, let's talk about a novella called Triple Acts by Scott Cole, which follows a group of exotic dancers, meaning strippers, that are slowly getting killed off by a mysterious slasher. And this is actually a very feminist, sexy horror book because I love that it's told from the perspective of the dancers, and they are all very smart, empowered women who have chosen the career they have because it is the best way for them to make money and help out their families and so forth. And I really like that this book addresses the fact that the police and other authorities don't really take them seriously because of their professions, and I really do think it speaks to the stigma. It's definitely not intended to be erotic, like this book is not intended to get the reader excited, but it certainly does talk about adult things and the things you would expect to be discussed or happening in a strip club, so keep that all in mind. I love a good slasher story, and this one was just fun and fast-paced and very enjoyable. Highly recommend it. It's just a lot of fun. Next up, we have The Girl in the Video by David Michael Wilson, and this is about a school teacher who is working in Japan. He gets an email which contains a video of a girl wearing a Hello Kitty mask who is dancing in a rather sexy way, and at first he is very interested in this video, but then soon enough he becomes a little bit more disturbed or creeped out because he doesn't know who sent it, and soon enough more videos and messages start appearing in his inboxes in his various social media accounts, and he just becomes afraid because he does not know who is behind it or what they are trying to do. And so this is one that is definitely really creepy, and it does have, of course, that element of sexiness because of the video dancer, and you just really don't know where it's going. Again, it's novella, so it's quite short. I don't want to give away much of the plot, but it's actually a very eerie book. I love that it involves technology, and that's always an aspect of horror that I really enjoy when it blends in those modern themes. And yeah, I just thought this one was really fun, highly recommend, and would love more people to check it out. And along a similar note, we also have a horror novella called They're Watching, also by David Michael Wilson, along with Bob Pastoral. And this is one about a man who moves into a new apartment building in a new place and discovers that there is a tiny hole in the wall which allows him to see the girl next door. And she is some kind of dancer, and basically every night she puts on music and dances around her apartment. And so he cannot help but watch because he's very attracted to her. Of course, the question is, if he is watching her, who is watching him? And horror things ensue. And again, I just thought this one was a lot of fun. I don't always like to repeat authors in the same video, but obviously this one just fit the theme very well. And I think if you like that voyeuristic aspect of horror, then this one is a lot of fun to check out as well. And I just would love to see more people trying it for themselves. Now, if you want a full-length horror novel, I would recommend The Haunted by Bentley Little, which is a contemporary horror story that follows a family that move into a new place that seems too good to be true. It's beautiful and new, and the cost of their mortgage is just right. However, once they move in, strange things start to happen, and yes, this is a haunted house story. You've heard me before say that I don't always love the genre, but this is one that is the exception. I just found this one to be incredibly creepy, and I did like that it was more of a modern take, so it is set in the present day and it's less gothic than some of the more classic books in the genre. And the reason I'm including it in this video is that if you're not aware, Bentley Little likes to go to the weird, and specifically the sexy weird, so his books often involve sexual encounters, and he writes these in the most uncomfortable way. So while I'm including this among sexy horror, I don't necessarily mean that this is an arousing book. It's very uncomfortable to read at times. There are a lot of sex scenes that will just make you curl your toes, but not in a good way. And there are scenes involving toys that are very memorable, and I'll leave a lot of it to your imagination. I don't want to spoil the book. Bentley Little is not for everyone. His books are very uncomfortable on purpose, and some people will just find it off-putting. I find it really fun. I know that can be unpopular to say, but I just enjoy where he goes. I like a book that can make me uncomfortable, and this book definitely did that. So if you share my weird interest in horror books that lean into the sexy side in a really weird way, and I don't know how else to describe it, this is one you might want to try for yourself. Not for everyone, but yeah, it totally worked for me. It was just hilarious. Next, we have Bidden by Kelly Armstrong, and this one is more urban fantasy, but it does lean into horror. Basically, it follows a young woman named Alina who is the world's only female werewolf. Typically, only men are able to survive the process and change and become a werewolf, but if a woman is bitten, she just simply dies. However, when her lover bites her, she actually does survive, and the story takes place years later when she's returning back to the place where her pack was formed and is reunited with the man that turned her into a werewolf. And so yes, this one actually does deal a lot more with the romantic side of the horror genre. And I gotta say, I actually really enjoyed it. I listened to it as an audiobook, and when I saw a used copy at a bookstore, I did pick it up because I perhaps wanted to reread certain scenes for myself. There's a particular scene involving a tree outside, and I got really into it. So this is definitely the sexiest of the sexy horror on this list. Less horror, more fun, and I very much enjoyed it. Not for everyone. I actually don't normally like urban fantasy. There is a lot of these sorts of books out there, but for whatever reason this one did work for me, so maybe it'll work for you, even if you kind of share my lack of interest in a lot of the other ones like True Blood, etc. But yeah, this one really hit the right mark for me, and yeah, I quite enjoyed it. Probably more than I should admit on camera, but I do recommend it. Last, I want to end by recommending two different graphic novel series, and I like to recommend graphic novels for something like this because they add that visual aspect to it, which I think works really well with the theme. So the first one I want to mention is Hack and Slash, which follows the survivor of a slasher, and she is a young teenage girl that goes along with her monster companion, and now she hunts down the slasher killers herself. This is a great book that of course takes the tropes of the slasher genre and turns them on their heel, turning the final girl into the heroine. And I really enjoy this series. There are a few different volumes or versions that I have read, and so I'm going to have a couple linked down below. One is more the original, which is more what I would describe as fan servicey, so she's wearing very scantily clad outfits, and it's much more intended to entice the reader. And there's an updated version which arguably is perhaps not as strong, but if you're put off by the fact that she's wearing skimpy clothes in the original, I think that the reboot might work better for you. I enjoyed both. I actually think that the story in the original worked a bit better for me, but I would recommend them both, just depending on what you're looking for. And along a very similar note, I also want to recommend a series called Vampirilla, which follows a female vampire hunter. And this, again, has a couple different versions to it. She has a very iconic outfit, which is not covering much of her body and is pretty much just a swimsuit. And that version is definitely the classic one that most people will know, but there is a reboot that has her wearing a lot more clothes. I actually really like the reboot because it made the comic a lot darker, both in tone and as well in the artwork itself. And so again, I enjoyed both, but I actually found the reboot to be more serious, and I think I like it a little bit better. Again, links will be down below to whichever one you prefer to try for yourself, but I did really enjoy this one. It's more focused on the vampire hunter than the vampires themselves, which works for me because vampires aren't my favorite subgenre of horror, but I did enjoy the action. I love a strong female character, and you definitely get that with this series. So overall, really recommend it, and it's just a lot of fun. So that is it for this video. Hopefully you enjoyed it. It is a little bit different, and I hope you found something within these recommendations that is up your alley. Again, I tried to include a variety of interpretations of sexy horror, because what does that even mean? I would love to hear your comments down below if you're planning on picking up any of the books I mentioned, or if you want to recommend your own sexy horror book. Maybe that's something I can pick up this Valentine's Day. As always, thank you so much for watching. If you're new to my channel, please consider subscribing. I read a lot of horror as well as thrillers, science fiction, and fantasy. You can also help me out by giving this video a thumbs up and sharing it around online. As always, I will talk to you again soon. Okay, bye-bye.